Hey, everyone, this is Mark Treichel with another episode of With Flying Colors. It is the last Monday of July, and last week there was some interesting news in the press as it relates to President Trump's firing of board members Todd Harper and Tanya Otsuka. Let me see if I can get my days right. Last Wednesday, there was a decision made at some level of the courts. I'm not going to go into the nuances of what levels there are, but there was a decision made saying that Trump violated the Federal Credit Union Act and that Harper and Otsuka would be reinstated. That same day, the government, representing Trump, Besant, Kyle Hauptman, and Larry Fazio, who were also sued by, interestingly, by Harper and Otsuka, but they filed a motion saying we need to stay this on Wednesday because it would be problematic to bring them back while this has not worked its way all the way through the courts. That did not get acted on in time for the NCUA board meeting on Wednesday, which was, excuse me, on Thursday, last Thursday, which was three briefings. A briefing on artificial intelligence, a briefing on the CLF, and a briefing by NCUA's Ombudsman, a new office that has been created under Harper and or Hauptman, as opposed to it just being one person who reported to the executive director. By the way, I predict that when new Republicans come in, that office may be wound back into the office of the executive director. Anyway, I digress. So Thursday they had the board meeting. It was interesting. I was interested to see how that went. Tanya Otsuka was in purpose. Harper was on video, appeared to be elsewhere, probably because he had things going on that prevented him from getting there in person on Thursday with the short notice. But the stay was not put in place, so they did have the board meeting. Harper cracked a joke on the front end, but hey, what's been going on the last 3 months? And the 500-pound elephant in the room relative to the whole issue, all three sides avoided it, didn't bring it up. It was essentially business as usual from that perspective. The three briefings really didn't have anything of substance. The CLF briefing they do on occasion saying, hey, they need more borrowing capacity for credit unions. And the briefing on the ombudsman was interesting. They asked, board member Harper asked if they were going to be doing some initiatives coming up relative to the program, and the individual said they didn't have enough staff. Well, when I was there, we staffed the ombudsman with one person, and there were enough other structures at the agency to handle any complaints or appeals. So I found it ironic that that new office was complaining about resources while NCUA's mission is losing about 20 to 22% of their staff and really having a hard time getting their mission done. They're having to do a lot of triage, which we've talked about here, but nobody ever has enough resources, and the ombudsman is, in my opinion, more of a make-believe position that really doesn't do much of anything, but I will leave it at that. Okay, so they had those three briefings. This puts staff in a weird position. Are they coming back? Are they not coming back? You obviously want to treat everybody with respect, and it was a respectful board meeting, so that was all great. The AI briefing, really, I didn't glean anything from that other than an interesting dialogue and fact pattern question from Todd Harper saying, perhaps we can provide opinions that certain AI vendors are doing things right. And he talked about it as it relates to small credit unions. And while I was watching or listening, I did the little head nod, like when your dog doesn't understand what's going on, because Todd's a smart guy. Clearly, he doesn't think NCUA can sanction those. So, what was the purpose of asking that question? I don't know. But no, NCUA cannot give opinions that say vendor ABC that does XYZ is blessed by NCUA. And he knows that. So, I don't know what the purpose of that was, but I'm sure there was one. And maybe we'll find out in the future. Maybe we won't, because the reality is, over the weekend, a stay was put in place, and it said, we're not commenting on the merits of the case, but what we are doing is agreeing with the government that we should have a stay until this can be seen further. And I believe the next step will be the Supreme Court. Now, if you're listening to this, you can't see the shirt I have on, which is very colorful. It's the jockeys Silks of the Numbers. And it's, by the way, it's Old Smoke, who makes some really cool horse racing t-shirts. But what are the odds that Harper and Otsuka come back? I would say ultimately, if I was a betting man, and I'm not, unless it has something to do with horse racing, I would say 80% chance that they do not come back and that the places will be filled uh, uh, before the end of the year, before the budget, probably with the possibility of two board members, one Republican and one Democrat, or Kyle Houtman's term is up next month. This is July, last Monday of July. Next month, his term is up. You could see President Trump reward three board members, put two Republicans in and one Democrat, and have a brand new group, which um, is chaotic, right? The care and feeding of a board member at the executive level, when they come in the first year, they believe that um, they hear a lot of things negative about NCUA. They believe all them, and then staff spends time showing their professionalism and showing that things are done well and showing that what they might have not heard isn't all factual. So, I praise NCUA when I think they need to be praised. I criticize them when I think they need to be criticized. But the professionalism of staff is well above average. And while they're going through all these things, it's chaotic. But imagine it's chaotic with two board members coming in and having to get brought up to speed. It's possible there will be three brought on by the end of the year, and it's possible that I don't think the odds are long. Back to the silks on the shirt, but I don't think the odds are long. But it's possible that Otsuka and Harper could come back. Now, as I've talked about elsewhere on LinkedIn, on my blog posts, here on video, and on the podcast, NCUA does have a 2-year budget. The biggest thing coming up is the budget, and I think a Republican board of two would do some things relative to the budget and take some actions that would reduce cost to credit unions in the short term, and you can debate whether it would reduce cost to credit unions in the long term. Since AI was brought up, I'm going to pivot into one item. So the Inspector General at NCUA, at all agencies, has to report to Congress every 6 months, and there's certain things that they must do. And as it relates to senior government employees, if there are investigations that are done, whether they provide fruit or provide wrongdoing or exonerate the senior government employee, they have to tell Congress that those actions were taken. And it's based on pay, it's not based on grade. And because the banking agencies pay higher, they tend to have a bigger percentage of their staff fall into the category of senior government official. So they did an audit that I'm going to read from the March report. I'm not sure exactly when this went up. It covered October to March. Takes them a couple months to do it. Probably submitted this in May. But anyway, false statement, misuse of government property. During the reporting period, OI, the Office of Investigation, closed an investigation that was open during the prior reporting period regarding NCUA's Critical Infrastructure Division Director, who was a grade 15, and an Information System Officer, grade 14, who reported to him. The investigation substantiated allegations that the director sent non-public supervisory information, personally identifiable information, and law enforcement sensitive documents to his personal email account in violation of the NCUA's acceptable use policy. The investigation also found that the director provided false statements during the process for his background investigation, including omitting numerous outside employment positions he held while working at the NCUA, and that he violated the NCUA's acceptable use policy by routinely using his NCUA email account to conduct business for the outside employment. The investigation substantiated allegations that the information system officer sent NCUA work to his personal email and provided false information in the application process to the NCUA that overstated his cybersecurity experience. On October 15th, the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Eastern District of Virginia declined the case for prosecution. By the way, they always decline because historically, what's pointed out here is not something that is the U.S. Attorney feels that they need to prosecute. The information system officer resigned from NCUA on September 19th, and the critical infrastructure division director retired from NCUA on October 19th. Because if you're eligible to retire, what do? You say, we're going to fire you. You say, no, I'm gonna retire. So this situation is interesting. You've got people lying about their resume. You've got people sending stuff to their personal computer, using NCUA government for other work. And by the way, there's a regulation. If a NCUA employee has outside work, it needs to be approved if you're going to continue doing that. So sounds like they were double dipping, maybe triple dipping. Sounds like they were sending information to their personal computers, using their business computers for personal work, which probably in and of itself wouldn't have triggered all this. Having some personal documents, for example, on their NCUA government laptop isn't going to trigger this, but it's all that other noise around it. And I I understand from the AI briefing that they want credit unions to be able to use AI, but use it appropriately and follow third-party due diligence. That NCUA is using it in some minor ways. I've also heard that NCUA says they are not authorized to use it, and I also heard a rumor that perhaps some people were involved in this case were sending information to their personal laptop and using their personal laptop to get information back into the NCUA system so that they could use AI, perhaps so that they could enhance their presentations. That's a little bit of conjecture on my part, a lot of rumor tied to what they may or may not have done. But I will be watching these IG reports going forward a little bit more closely to see if there's anything worthy of talking about. They do audits. They have an audit plan, just like they expect you to have an audit plan for your supervisory committee. And they did do an audit that caught my eye about the examiner rotation policy, which, depending on what year it is, NCUA has had a 3-year rotation, and they've had a 4-year rotation where examiner can only be an examiner charge for 3 years if that's the policy, or 4 years if that's the current policy. And quite frankly, I don't know which one the current policy is. But they made a pretty generic statement saying they need to improve their policies and make sure they're following that. That didn't go into great detail, but of the long report to Congress, those were the 2 items that caught my eye. Lastly, I had a longer podcast a couple weeks back with 3 members of my team: Dennis, who's new to the team, Steve, and Todd. And it was longer than most of our podcasts. It was about the OCC risk report, which there's a lot of corollaries to credit unions and what that means to credit unions, and what you can look at the ramifications of how that might impact your exam. It was so long that I broke it down into shorter podcasts that will run on Thursdays, and that will also appear on YouTube on Thursdays, running here through the summer. The summer months are a little slower as far as listeners, a little slower as far as me having much to talk about, because the NCUA board kind of typically shuts down, and right now there really is no board, and as evidenced by the fact that all they did was these tame briefings. By the way, they could have done, and usually have done, historically have acted on a mid-year budget or had a budget briefing. They didn't do that, and it's probably because of the chaos around all the numbers as it relates to the reorg, that they probably just didn't want to touch that. As a reminder, NCUA takes August off as a board. They don't have a board meeting. They could, but they don't historically. because that's when DC kind of shuts down. And they'll be back up in September. Then they've got 4 months, September, October, November, December, to theoretically get new board members in place, to theoretically have a budget, to theoretically have a budget briefing, which is required by the Federal Credit Union Act due to the good lobbying by Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, to get that act placed back several years ago. All right, that's it. This is Mark Treichel. As always, I appreciate you listening. I hope you'll listen again soon. Signing off with flying colors.